The cold hum of the server racks was a physical presence, vibrating through the soles of my shoes in the dead silence of the data core. This wasn't just a room, it was the heart of everything Elara and I had built, now beating a desperate rhythm against my chest. My breath hitched. I wasn't supposed to be here. My badge was deactivated, my email purged. I was a ghost, haunting the kingdom I'd created. My gaze was locked onto the terminal. The command I'd meticulously typed out years ago, for a theoretical doomsday scenario, now filled the screen, initiate_core_meltdown. It wasn't just a wipe. It was a complete, irreversible digital obliteration. Every customer record, every line of proprietary code, every trace of our multi-million-dollar existence. Gone. Forever. A phantom chill touched my face, the exact echo of Elara's expression when she delivered the final blow, a mask of cold, professional dismissal as she called me redundant. After 7 years of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights. My chest tightened with a searing mix of pain and white-hot rage. She took my job. She broke my trust. She ripped apart a friendship that felt like family. And yet, here I stood, the architect, still holding the admin key, the single, root credential that gave me absolute power over every digital atom of her empire. I could destroy it all. I should destroy it all. But as my finger trembled over the enter key, ready to execute total annihilation, another, far more insidious thought struck me. Destroying it would be quick. Clean. And it would let her off too easy. What if there was a way to make her feel every single ounce of the pain, the fear, and the helplessness I was experiencing? What if I could dismantle her world, piece by excruciating piece, without ever touching that destroy button? The question wasn't if I had the power to burn her empire to the ground. It was, could I resist the satisfying fury of total destruction, and instead, choose a far more agonizing, drawn-out revenge that would make her beg for mercy from the man she broke? The world knows Elara as the visionary, the genius CEO. They see the glossy magazine covers, the billion-dollar valuation. What they don't see is the cost of that success. The sacrifices. The betrayals. And the man left standing in the wreckage, holding the ultimate weapon. My name is Ethan. And I wasn't just some programmer. I was the architect. For 7 years, I was the one who built the very digital spine of that company, translating Elara's wildest dreams into solid, functional reality. We were inseparable. A perfect storm of ambition and execution. Until the moment she decided success meant cutting away the parts of her past she no longer found convenient. My loyalty. My expertise. My friendship. The world knows Elara as the visionary, the genius CEO. They see the glossy magazine covers, the billion-dollar valuation. What they don't see is the cost of that success. The sacrifices. The betrayals. And the man left standing in the wreckage, holding the ultimate weapon. My name is Ethan. And I wasn't just some programmer. I was the architect. For 7 years, I was the one who built the very digital spine of that company, translating Elara's wildest dreams into solid, functional reality. We were inseparable. A perfect storm of ambition and execution. Until the moment she decided success meant cutting away the parts of her past she no longer found convenient. My loyalty. My expertise. My friendship. This isn't a story about a bad business deal. This is the raw, unvarnished truth about a friendship shattered, an empire built on trust and ruined by unchecked ego, and the single, most potent tool of retribution I held in my hands. This is the million-dollar mistake. She fired the architect of her success, but I still held the admin key. And that key, that key was about to rewrite the rules of our war. To grasp the terrifying power I possessed, you must first understand the symbiotic relationship that forged us. Elara was the unstoppable force, always focused on the next big thing, the dazzling future. I was the immovable object, grounded in the present, meticulously building the secure, scalable foundation that allowed her to soar. The company's entire, complex digital ecosystem, from customer onboarding to secure payment processing, from internal communications to proprietary algorithms, all flowed through the architecture I had personally designed and implemented. And the admin key? It was the ultimate master override, a testament to the absolute trust we once shared. When Elara fired me, she didn't just terminate an employee. She committed the fatal miscalculation of believing her new, high-priced hires could simply step into a system that was fundamentally an extension of my mind. She thought I was disposable. She thought she had stripped me of all influence. She was wrong. Deeply, catastrophically wrong. And as I watched the live dashboards of her newly leaderless system begin to flicker and stutter, a chilling realization washed over me: the admin key wasn't just a password. It was an invitation to watch her empire burn, slowly and agonizingly, from the inside out. But what exactly could I do with that key to make her truly regret her $1 million mistake without destroying everything I once cherished? The memory of those early days is still tinged with the metallic taste of ambition and the scent of burnt coffee. It wasn't glamorous. Our office was a literal, dusty garage, all concrete floor and bad lighting. But that was where the magic happened. That was where Elara gave me the brief: build me a system that can handle 50 million users, even if we only have 5 right now. And do it for nothing. My task wasn't just to cobble together a decent website, it was to invent the entire spinal cord of the company. We couldn't afford off-the-shelf solutions. Every penny went into product development and Elara's relentless marketing. That meant I had to build everything from scratch, optimized to run leaner, faster, and smarter than any enterprise software. I spent 6 months living inside that code. I custom-engineered our entire infrastructure, the bespoke payment processing bridge, the dynamic customer database that learned user habits, the internal communication network. It was a singular, massive, interwoven logic tree. My code was the engine block, the oil, and the spark plugs all rolled into one. If the system was a living, breathing creature, my logic was its DNA. That level of total immersion and control had a consequence, which at the time, felt like a necessity: the admin key. I created the highest level, root credential, a physical USB drive and a password only I knew, because, frankly, no one else could navigate the system's inner workings. It wasn't about power, it was about responsibility. I was the only one who could restart the heart of the company if it ever failed. What exactly was this key? It was the key to unlocking the code that made us unique. It was the key to every single customer record. It was the ultimate, undisputed authority. We built the system on total trust. I held the key, and Elara never, ever questioned it. Then came the boom. Elara, in her brilliant, chaotic way, launched a campaign that went nuclear. We weren't just successful, we were viral. We were supposed to peak at 10,000 signups that week. We hit 50,000 in a single night. That moment of pressure is where my architecture proved its worth. Most startups would have collapsed under the load. Payment systems would have failed. Our custom-built system barely blinked. We handled the surge seamlessly. The dollar figures followed fast. We hit $1 million in revenue in year 1. We celebrated with cheap champagne in the garage. Then, year 3, we moved into the glass tower, and the dashboard showed $10 million. That rapid ascent validated every single choice I had made, every late night I'd pulled. We did it. We were unstoppable. But with that success came the first subtle sign of distance. The first crack. Elara stopped wearing jeans and t-shirts. She started wearing power suits. She replaced the pizza and ramen with catered salads and boardroom meetings. My input shifted from creative collaboration to technical advice. I remember a specific moment during a hiring spree. I warned her about a security vulnerability in a third-party tool she insisted on using for marketing. I presented the data. She smiled, patted my arm, and said, "Thanks, Ethan, but we have to focus on scale now, not fear." The architect's job was security, the visionary's job was growth. And she subtly signaled which one mattered less. The seeds of ego and separation were planted, and they were growing fast in the rich soil of our success. The first major confrontation over my control wasn't a fight, it was an attempt at modernization. Elara hired a six-figure consulting firm, all slick presentations and industry buzzwords, to conduct a deep audit and streamline the infrastructure. I knew their real purpose, to extract the admin key and transfer control away from me. I cooperated fully. I laid out the blueprints of the architecture. But my system wasn't built to be easily transferred. It was an integrated marvel, relying on thousands of highly optimized code pathways that only I understood. The consultants spent 2 grueling months trying to map it. They tried to create documentation. They tried to build a redundant system. They failed, spectacularly. They discovered that any attempt to decouple or replace my core architecture would be more expensive, more time-consuming, and far riskier than just leaving it alone. They told Elara that the system was too interwoven with Ethan's DNA to be safely delegated. In their professional assessment, I was, quite literally, irreplaceable. Elara was furious. She paid the consultants their enormous fee, sent them packing, and then came to my office. She didn't apologize. She just said, "We need to get you out of the weeds, Ethan. This dependence is a liability." I knew what she meant. My control was irritating her new executive team. In a desperate bid to show her goodwill and prove I wasn't grasping for power, I genuinely tried to hand over the admin key, the actual drive and the written password, to her new head of operations. He took one look at the complexity of the master console interface and handed it straight back, sweating. "I wouldn't even know where to begin," he admitted. "Ted." I walked back to my desk, the admin key heavy in my pocket. The system was too complex, too interwoven with my DNA. I was technically, undeniably irreplaceable. And that knowledge, the certainty that I held the ultimate veto power over the entire organization, was the calm before the storm. She couldn't fire the architect until she could replace the key, and she simply couldn't. But what if she decided to fire me anyway, gambling that her new team could manage without the master control? The atmosphere in the glass tower had curdled. Success hadn't brought harmony, it had brought isolation. After the failed attempt by the consultants to seize my control, Elara made a strategic retreat, but her resentment festered. The days of collaboration were over. My job title, while technically still chief architect, might as well have been IT staff. I was simply the guy you called when the system went dark, a necessary, expensive nuisance. Elara had surrounded herself with yes men, new executives who spoke her language of disruption and scaling, and who never, ever questioned her judgment. They painted my cautious warnings as fear and my stability as stagnation. The strategic mistake was inevitable. Against my final, formal advice I even put in writing, Elara greenlit a massive, public-facing platform launch. This new system was built entirely by a third-party vendor, designed to bypass my core architecture completely. It was her digital declaration of independence from Ethan. I warned her, the security handoff is flawed. The new API calls are inefficient. You're creating a massive, unsupported security hole. She just waved me away. The launch was a public disaster. It wasn't a total collapse, but it was a catastrophic failure in execution. Customers were double-charged. Data was momentarily exposed. The numbers dipped for the first time in 3 years. We lost 7 figures in 1 quarter due to refunds and reputation damage. The board demanded answers. And who did Elara sacrifice? Not her new expensive consultants. She stood up in that room, pointed her finger at the complexity, and declared, the outdated architecture is inhibiting our growth. We are working around legacy systems that are too expensive and too fragile. She blamed the architecture. She blamed me. It was a lie, a clean, convenient fabrication that sealed my fate. I wasn't told. I was summoned. It wasn't a conversation, it was a cold, choreographed delivery. I walked into the conference room and found not Elara, but a stone-faced HR manager and the company's external lawyer. Elara wasn't even there. That detail, her absolute cowardice, hurt more than the words themselves. The lawyer, reading from a prepared statement, delivered the professional execution. They talked about redundancy, restructuring, and different technical direction. They handed me the severance package, a stack of paper that felt meaningless. I finally snapped my gaze to the HR manager. Where is Elara? The HR manager didn't even meet my eyes. Ms. Elara sends her best, Ethan. She appreciates your hard work over the years, but she felt this message needed to be delivered clear. Ly. It was the ultimate, shattering insult. The woman who built this empire with me, side by side, couldn't even look me in the eye when she broke my professional life and our friendship. The lawyer finished the statement with the phrase that cut me to the bone, you're too expensive, and honestly, you're a liability. That word, liability. After building the very thing that made her rich, that word was meant to erase my value, my history, and my dignity. I didn't argue. I didn't sign anything. I just stood up, picked up the box they'd prepared with my pathetic few personal items, and walked out. The climax of the personal betrayal was complete. I was in a fog. The shame, the anger, the absolute desolation, it was paralyzing. I rode the elevator down for the last time, walked past the reception desk where they'd already deactivated my access card, and drove out of the parking lot. I was numb. It wasn't until I was halfway home, parked on the shoulder of a dark highway, that the thought finally cut through the emotional haze. I was staring blankly at my phone, trying to decide who I could even call, when I went to delete the app for my two-factor authenticator. I stopped. I didn't need the authenticator anymore. My company accounts were locked. But then I opened my personal password vault. And there it was. The single, cryptic text file I'd backed up 5 years ago, master access root admin v.6. The admin key. The master password for the entire, custom-built system. Nobody asked for it. Not the lawyer. Not the HR manager. Not Elara. In their arrogance, they had been so focused on the official corporate procedure, the badge, the email, the laptop, that they completely overlooked the single, most critical credential that controlled the entire financial engine. They had fired the architect, but the admin still lived, securely tucked away in my private possession. It wasn't just access, it was absolute authority. I could log in right now. I could see everything. The realization hit me like a physical punch. Elara was completely, devastatingly exposed. The numbness evaporated, replaced by a cold, clinical curiosity. I went home, ignored the box of my old life, and booted up my private terminal. I wasn't logging in to take action, not yet. I was logging in to watch. What I saw was instant validation of my warnings. The very next day, the company's official public status boards and Twitter feed were alight with complaints. Elara's new, flawed system was failing under the stress of a simple Monday morning traffic surge. I watched the internal logs. Massive security holes opened up in the payment processor bridge she'd installed against my warnings. Funds were delayed. Customer data was being exposed to error logs. The panic was visible even in the data. Within 48 hours, the internal logs estimated the company had lost almost $1 million in fees, refunds, and lost sales. The headlines started to appear on tech news sites. They were scrambling. They were attempting desperate fixes that were only making the situation worse, unaware they were patching a dam that had sprung 1 million leaks. They were trying to call the former consultant firm. They were trying to brute force a solution. And then, I saw the name pop up on the internal comms log I was still monitoring, Elara. Her account was attempting to access the highest level configuration files, the ones she hadn't touched in years. She was realizing the true scope of the disaster. She was panicking. And she was about to make a desperate, humiliating call. I had the power to ignore it and watch the empire crumble. But the sight of my beautiful, complex system suffocating under incompetence stirred a new, complicated emotion. When my phone finally rang with her number, would I answer, and what unbelievable price would I set for the architect's return? I didn't have to wait long. I had been watching the comms logs, seeing the frantic, useless commands her new team was executing, when my private phone finally buzzed. It was a blocked number, but I knew who it was. I took a deep breath, the silence in my apartment heavy with anticipation. I didn't hear Elara's voice. I heard the frantic, tight voice of her new COO, Robert, the man who had openly dismissed my complexity as unnecessary bloat. He skipped the pleasantries. There was no apology for the firing, no acknowledgement of the chaos they had created. In Robert's voice, Ethan. Thank God. We need you to send us the master credentials, immediately. The new system is failing, and we believe there's a legacy backdoor issue we can't isolate. This is a 5-alarm fire. In my voice, Robert. It's Mr. Ethan to you. And you believe correctly. The system I built is too secure for incompetence. It's not a backdoor, it's the security I put in place to prevent amateurs from breaking it. He immediately shifted from desperation to his default setting, arrogance. He hissed, saying, "Don't be difficult. You are legally required to hand over all company assets. You'll hear from the law tomorrow if you don't comply. Just email us the password and, ow." That was the key. They didn't ask for help, they demanded compliance. They still viewed me as an obstacle, not a solution. The surge of righteous fury was intoxicating. I said, "Robert, tell Elara this, the architect is retired. But my architecture is dying. And I charge an emergency response rate for system stabilization, data recovery, and administrative access handover." Robert stuttered, saying, a rate? What are you talking about? We'll pay you hourly. I responded, the architect charges $1 million retainer, payable upfront into a blind escrow account before I log in for 30 seconds. And that's just the starting rate for the privilege of talking to me. The line went silent for an eternity. I had the power now. I had flipped the script. They needed the key to survive the next 24 hours, and I had just set a price that demanded not just money, but their absolute, humiliating acknowledgement of my essential worth. Robert hung up. I knew the COO was running straight to Elara's office, spitting fire. I had drawn a line in the digital sand. That period of waiting, those long, agonizing minutes, were the climax of my moral introspection. I walked to my desk, staring at the physical admin key, the small USB drive. I thought back to the flash-forward moment from the hook, my hand hovering over the keyboard, ready to execute the scorch. I could still do it. I could log in right now, wipe the system, and let her watch everything burn to the ground. I could ruin her with a single click and have my total, irreversible revenge. But the hatred was battling the pride of creation. That system was my masterpiece. It was beautiful, complex, and efficient. It was the best thing I had ever built. Watching her new team butcher it, watching the integrity of the data dissolve, that was a pain almost worse than the betrayal itself. This wasn't just about the key, it was about my soul. If I let the company crash just to hurt Elara, didn't that make me just as destructive and short-sighted as she was? Was I really willing to sacrifice my ethical code for a moment of vindicated vengeance? I said, the admin key is absolute power. And absolute power is the ultimate moral test. Could I use that power to rebuild my dignity, or would I use it to destroy the only thing of value that came from my friendship with Elara? The $1 million was easy. The decision to save her was the impossible part. The choice hung heavy, revenge through destruction, or redemption through professional dominance? The phone rang again 20 minutes later. This time, it was Elara. Her voice was strained, stripped of all CEO polish. She tried one last time to appeal to our past, to our friendship. I cut her off. I said firmly, Elara, this is business now. You dissolved the friendship. You called me a liability. The contract is non-negotiable. She tried to negotiate the fee. I was immovable. She finally, brokenly, agreed. The deal I made was not just about the money. I insisted that I would not hand over the key to Robert's team. I would go back into the headquarters myself, for exactly 48 hours, to stabilize the system and prepare it for a safe handoff. But I demanded a meeting, face-to-face, with only her. The next morning, I walked back into the glass tower. The difference was stunning. The high-powered executives looked frantic. The atmosphere was poisonous. I bypassed everyone and went straight to Elara's corner office. The final scene was a masterpiece of power reversal. She stood opposite me, looking small and defeated. The contract was laid out. The $1 million retainer was detailed, along with a clause that allowed me to terminate the stabilization immediately if I saw any evidence of technical incompetence interfering with my work. She had to sign it, knowing I had absolute power over her. She lifted her eyes, and for the first time since the firing, I saw true, humbling defeat. She signed the contract, her humiliation complete. I didn't waste a second. I logged into the core system, not as a former employee, but as an external contractor with unlimited authority. I stabilized the architecture, purged the vulnerabilities, and secured the network. She got her company back. I got my dignity and a substantial check. But the admin key? When I left 48 hours later, after handing over the new, temporary credentials, I slipped the old master drive back into my pocket. I looked back at the glass tower. The architect had saved the building. But the admin still lived. I had my money, my vindication, and my power. But I knew, deep down, that the story wasn't over. That admin key was still the only real insurance policy I had. I fulfilled my contract. I fixed the code. I saved the multi-million-dollar asset, the asset that was supposed to be a shared family legacy. I walked out with my $1 million retainer and my dignity. But the real failure here isn't a business one, it's a failure of blood. The core truth, the one I want you to carry with you, is that the $1 million mistake is believing that professional success can whitewash personal sin. Elara became so intoxicated with her CEO status, with her visionary narrative, that she believed her ego could supersede the fundamental laws of family loyalty. She chose greed over kinship. She chose to replace our shared history with a corporate layoff notice. True, lasting success must be built on a foundation of respect that extends beyond the boardroom. It must include the people who share your name. She sacrificed that foundation for the sake of appearances. That single choice cost her millions, nearly brought down the entire house, and forever fractured the bond between us. I got my price. But the universe, as you're about to see, often demands a heavier, final toll. In the weeks that followed, the company stabilized. Elara continued her path, ignoring the truth, hiring a new team to finally decommission my legacy system. She believed the threat was neutralized. She believed the family conflict was over. She was wrong. When I handed over the emergency credentials, I never surrendered the true master override. The admin key, the single, root credential that controls the entire, interwoven system, is still with me. Encrypted. Secure. It is the only insurance policy I have left against the very people I share a history with. I know something she and her entire new executive team don't. And that knowledge is the true, eternal, and terrifying weight of being the architect of her ISE. A month ago, an alert flashed red on a private diagnostics server I still run. It was a signal I programmed years ago for only the most critical, life-threatening danger to the core system. The alert revealed that Elara's new team is attempting a core infrastructure migration, a complete, ill-advised lift and shift of the essential database foundation. In this specific architecture, this maneuver guarantees immediate, unrecoverable data loss. They are about to delete everything. She doesn't know the system is alerting me. She doesn't know that I, Ethan, have the power, the knowledge, and the master key to stop it with a single, overriding command, right now. The clock is king. They initiate the final stage of the migration next week. The ultimate moral question is now deeply personal. I was paid. I was vindicated. But now, I have the chance to intervene and save the family asset, and the livelihoods of hundreds of people, from the final, fatal mistake caused by my own flesh and blood. Or, I can finally, truly, walk away and let the ego and incompetence of the woman who betrayed me consume her completely. I have the key. I know the exact moment the company, the source of our shared family pride and pain, will die. And to this day, I still haven't decided if I will lift my hand and save the empire that ruined our family. The stakes have moved far beyond the boardroom. This story is a testament to how the silent power of digital access can become the ultimate weapon in a family revenge narrative. What would you do with the admin key? Knowing this is a matter of family, not just finance, what is the right choice? Drop your answer in the comments below. A. Intervene and save the family's legacy, or B. Walk away and let the betrayal finalize itself? Tell me why that specific type of revenge is justified, or not. If you want more deep dives into true stories of family betrayal and revenge, subscribe and turn on notifications. We break down the real ethical dilemmas and high-stakes emotional battles that shape these powerful narratives.